Good morning, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call us to order at 9:31. Could we please get a roll call?
Chair Caballero,
Here.
Vice Chair Howerton, Planning Commissioner Cameron, Council Member Baker,
Here.
Commissioner Burns, Commissioner Jacobs, Mayor Pro Tem Middleton.
I'm here.
Thank you. Do we have any adjustments to the agenda? Okay, and then any announcements? Okay, thank you. And then moving on, the first item is any city or county manager priority items. Okay, and then the next thing is Carl, we have you presenting our Walltown Small Area Plan updates. Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everyone. Thanks for having me here. My name is Carl Kolosna. I'm a senior planner for the Durham City County Planning Department. Chris is very graciously helping me get my presentation set up. We're good to go. There you go. No worries. Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm here to give an update on the project. There's been a good amount of work since the JCCPC requested that the planning department start small area planning efforts, particularly in Walltown. So looking for feedback and guidance, just as a little bit of background. So this was at the April JCCPC meeting where staff presented the work program that included small area planning projects. And there was a strong consensus from the planning department or from JCCPC that we wanted to start with a Walltown small area plan. So pre-planning for work for that began in May of this year. Quickly, I just want to go through this. This is something we go through with residents a lot, explaining it's been a long time since we've done a small area plan. So there's a very quick overview. I find it helpful to start with the things that a small area plan is not, because these are questions that we often get. So those first three items are kind of grouped together. Basically, the bottom line is a small area plan is an advisory document. This is very similar to the comprehensive plan. It is not legally required. It is not the law. It is not the development ordinance. It is not the budget also. And for the budget, I'll say specifically, I'll get into details about this. We just want to note for folks that the plan document itself is not where budget items are just considered or approved, but we do intend for the small area plan to have components and strong tie-ins to the CIP and budget process. But just a little thing, mostly for as we're talking to residents, to explain that you can't just put in, we're going to allocate money for this, that, or the other in the plan and have it be so immediately. So what is a small area plan? So this has resulted from some of the pre-planning and scoping work that we've done. Basically, like I said, a small area plan in many ways is very similar to a comprehensive land use plan. It's going to be an equitable process to identify land use needs. Obviously, as the name implies, this is for a smaller specific area. So resulting in similar format to the comprehensive plan, where we have written recommendations, policy recommendations, and also maps that will inform things like rezoning requests, potentially call for changes to regulations, and strong tie-ins, particularly for the small area plan process, into the budget and CIP funding. Actions, these would be specific steps for government to take. Some of those actions may be things like changing the development regulations. But in general, we're talking about sort of our key land use planning issues: housing, environmental planning, transportation, affordability, those sort of things. So specifically for Walltown, I want to talk about some of the priorities that have come out in sort of the initial working. I'm going to skip this one for just a second. So one obvious, big component of this is that the small area plan for Walltown can give guidance on the Northgate development decisions that may be coming in the future, potential rezoning. But besides Northgate, some preliminary things that we've identified in Walltown are drainage and flooding is a really big issue. I've already started conversations with Public Works Stormwater Division, talking about potential options, and we're going to be working through what some engineering solutions or opportunities there could be. Streets, intersections, sidewalks, bus stops, coordinating with the transportation department to think about where there are transportation improvements that might be needed. This is an interesting one to me: paper streets and paper alleys. Walltown, we'll go back for just a second. Walltown has a lot of really nice grid structure, but through most of those grids, in most areas, there are paper streets or paper alleys that are going north to south. There's a couple of areas that are east to west also. So these are areas that were platted as being right-of-way back in the 20s when the area was platted, but they've been in a bit of a gray area for a long time now. So that in coordination with, in Walltown, there are 9 properties that are mostly owned by the city, vacant properties that the city's acquired over the years from tax foreclosures and things like that. A few areas, there are places where those paper streets and those vacant properties that the city owns are actually right next to each other. And it starts to add up to a decent little bit of land. So that's an interesting opportunity as we think about, a land use plan. Obviously, having land that is city-owned or at least in some sort of gray area, not outright private land, is an interesting opportunity that we want to pursue. So yeah, city-owned land. I think the last thing we'll say for this comprehensive plan, the idea of sort of the 15-minute community, which is that there would be access to daily resources, shops, and things like that, was a big ambition, but the scope of the countywide plan made it so it wasn't possible to really dive deep into a specific area and think about that, because we know there's a tension and context between, making sure residents are comfortable with small businesses opening up in areas that may have not been there before. So this is something that we think could be an opportunity in the Walltown Small Area Plan. So I'm going to go back. So this is the proposed project boundary that we have for the plan. Walltown, I would say this will probably not be the case for a lot of the small area plans that we have, but in Walltown's case, they actually have a fairly well-defined neighborhood boundary. So that's a Broad Street on the west side, Green on the south, Buchanan on the east, and then sort of netted by I-85. So this is the Walltown boundary, also including Northgate, basically. So we've shared this with a number of folks, and there haven't been any concerns about this being the sort of boundary for the project. Okay, so we're going to get into the kickoff meeting that we held. So that was on June 29th. So leading up to the meeting, we were meeting with the Walltown Community Association to get an understanding of basically some of the things I've described, the scope of what a small area plan is and isn't, what could be included, and how to sort of design engagement around it. So leading up to that meeting, staff sent out a mailer in English and Spanish to every property owner, and also the addresses, so not just the property owner, but any properties, any addresses that were on the site within the boundary, encouraging residents to attend the meeting. We created a project website, and messages were also sent out via the planning notification list and our City of Durham Communications Department. I also want to give a shout out to members of the Walltown Community Association who did door knocking, printing out flyers, canvassing, sending out information on the listserv, and other things set up by word of mouth. So the meeting began with a presentation from staff, sort of talking about some of the things I have today, and then Brandon Williams from the Walltown Community Association gave a presentation sort of summarizing community work that had been going on over the last several years around Northgate. So the focus of the meeting really on a big picture was around these 2 questions. After those presentations happened, we split up into group discussions to discuss 2 questions, which were, what do you want to see or not want to see for the former Northgate Mall site? And then besides Northgate, what else is on your mind about Walltown? All of the materials and discussion we had were available in English and Spanish. And we actually had one group discussion that was held entirely in Spanish, which was cool to see. So these were some of the results of this. I've included this as an attachment in the memo packet. As a total, we got about 201 total comments. And then we also had a section where we asked people to put any outstanding questions that they have. So there were 17 questions there. So overall, perhaps not surprisingly, the sort of what we heard from folks at this meeting, and I'll talk about demographics in just a second, are very similar to the things that the Walltown Community Association and the Northgate Mall Neighborhood Coalition has been hearing about and working about for the site in the future. So the desire and the need for affordable housing, to include housing on the site, to retain any existing businesses that are on the site, but also have affordable retail options for the site. Community-centered design, people talk about and remembered meeting around in the shopping center, eating at the cafeteria together. So wanting to see areas where people could be together, and also things like parks and open space on the site. And then environmental sustainability. The site is almost 60 acres in total, and a huge amount of it is impervious surface right now. It's a very hot area. So wanting to see tree canopy coverage, reducing that impervious surface, and get other environmentally sustainable designs like a green building infrastructure, solar panel, things like that. So Besides Northgate in Walltown, then, putting Northgate to a side for a second, Walltown concerns about gentrification and displacement, very similar and very particularly difficult in Walltown, similar to things that we heard during the comprehensive plan. Questions and concerns and sort of hopes about the park remediation from the soil contamination that's being worked on with DPR, and the state is doing their soil assessment right now. Transportation, right-of-way improvements. Trash and dumping was one that particularly came up a number of times for those paper alleys, because those are sort of in a gray area. Those end up being the site where people are dumping a lot of things. And then flooding and drainage, obviously a big one. Walltown is a low-lying area. There are streams and floodplains running throughout. So concerns about that and a desire to see changes and improvements in those areas. So total, the meeting was pretty well attended. We had 59 attendees who signed up, 33 who completed the demographic survey. Large percentage of folks lived in Walltown and other nearby neighborhoods like Trinity Park. Relatively even split between Black and African American and white people who attended. 6% who identified in Hispanic and Latino, although I think that was a little lower than the actual numbers because we had a group of 7 folks who had a conversation entirely in Spanish at the meeting, and 12% identifying as LGBTQIA plus. So we are going to think about these demographic results and sort of think about this as we're working on our next phase of engagement. So talking about the former Northgate Mall site specifically, so when we began this project in early May, there had not been any development application activity for the Northgate Mall site since about the year before, basically. Of course, within a couple of weeks of starting this project, the property owner scheduled a pre-submittal application meeting with our staff, which is a required step before they submit a zoning map change or a rezoning. Soon after that, they held their required neighborhood meeting in late May, where they laid out a proposal for redevelopment of the parcel that included rezoning to CG with a development plan, and included one key component was including a 72-unit apartment complex of senior affordable housing and a mix between 30 and 80% AMI, with a decent amount of that between the 30 and 50% AMI mark. So actually, the day before the project kickoff meeting, the planning department received a formal zoning map application for the site. That application, however, was soon after withdrawn by the applicant. And that is where we are right now, where the application was submitted. It was very quickly withdrawn. I reached out to the applicant and they said there'd been a miscommunication and they had intended to submit it after the kickoff meeting had started. They said they didn't have an exact timeline of when and if that would be resubmitted. So obviously, when and if and of what nature a rezoning is received during this project is some uncertainty that we're working around, but is basically a key reason why we decided to move forward and focus on developing policy to guide a potential rezoning for Northgate early in the process. So that sort of leads to, I'll also say we've met with representatives. It's Northwood, who are the property owners. So we had a meeting with them, mostly clarifying the advisory nature of the plan. Staff also met with representatives of Duke University, who owns the Macy's building, about a 2.5-acre site right there. So we both said they would be involved in the small area planning process, but obviously the Northwood developer indicated that they were planning on moving forward with their rezoning, which they then submitted and withdrew. That's where we are right now. So given that a lot of work has already been done in partnerships with organizations, the Walltown Community Association, the Coalition for Affordable Housing and Transit, the Northgate Mall Neighborhood Coalition have all done a lot of work over the last 4 or 5 years to develop a vision for Northgate. And at that kickoff meeting, we were hearing very similar information. So we, staff proposes and has now gone forward to develop a first draft of policy guidance specifically for the Northgate Mall site. I would like to spend the next meeting, I'm happy to talk about it now, but I want to spend the October and also the December meetings talking through that policy guidance with JCCPC, so we can have something that if and when a rezoning comes in, we have information that's gone through a public engagement process and has been talked through with folks here. So basically, I'm not going to go through all of the details here, but the idea is to focus on the Northgate policy leading up to that sort of December JCCPC meeting and making any revisions. We are starting, actually tomorrow is our first round of a next engagement phase that's focusing specifically on those policies. So we have a virtual meeting tomorrow evening. We are meeting with the developers to talk about the policies tomorrow as well. And then on Saturday, we have another in-person meeting at the Walltown Rec Center to sort of an open house format to share the policies with folks and get feedback on that. We've got an online survey that'll be open through October. So I think that means by around when we're having that first JCCPC meeting on this in October and then a follow-up one in December, we'll have a good idea of what we've been hearing from the community about these policies. So just quick updates. I think I went through this. So the idea then with the scope is if and when we're in a place where we feel pretty comfortable that we have a good solid draft of these policies by the end of the year, then if and when the rezoning process starts, working through that and then pivoting to basically all of those other issues that we talked about: drainage, transportation, opportunities with paper streets and stuff like that, starting in the early part of next year with an aim for sort of the beginning of a formal adoption process in mid-2025. So since our August 7th JCCPC meeting that got postponed, like I said, we've released the draft policy guidance and we have our first round of community engagement on those policies starting in the next couple of days with a paper survey through there. So that's everything that I have today here, and I'm happy to answer any questions that we have.
Commissioner Jacobs.
Thank you. Thank you, Carl, and for the work that you're leading on this. This is such an important project. You know, when I just thinking about the opportunity here, especially to really implement our new comprehensive plan. And I was just looking at the, I guess, the draft policy guidance, and it's just really exciting to think about this opportunity that, I mean, 60 acres that could be redeveloped and be an incredible site with the, just everything surrounding it. It's very exciting. Could you remind us what is in the future place type map? What is the land use for the site, and also just the surrounding? I think it would be really, for me, would be really helpful to see a map.
Mm.
And are you going to be incorporating that type of thing like in the neighborhood meetings and showing the site and what is in the future place type map and all that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a really important point. So the Northgate Mall site is designated as a transit opportunity area place type, which is basically our transit oriented development type place type. So that is calling for, high intensity and density, a big mix of uses and coordination with existing transit lines, which makes a lot of sense because there's a lot of transit options along Club there. So I'm glad you brought that up too, because the plan, the document that we have proposed, basically, there are 19 new policies on a range of topics, but it also synthesized in existing comprehensive plan guidance that is relevant to the site, of which there's a lot of. Like when we were developing the comprehensive plan, we recognized that Oxford Commons, Northgate, there's a number of old, suburban style shopping centers that are really big opportunities for a lot of changes in the land use. So yeah, we're going to have we're going to have that map. We're going to have I was just printing them out last week, big posters showing. And then I think the key thing is we've carried over, really just copied over verbatim all of the guidance that the comprehensive plan has for transit opportunity areas. And I've put that back into the draft document as sort of background context and to highlight that. And then there are additional policies that sort of are, more detailed or in some cases sort of supplement or change the document. So I think the transit opportunity area place type and the concept of a 15-minute community are really integral to what the comprehensive plan is already saying we want for this site. And we want to sort of put a highlight on that through this small area planning process.
And what role will or could partners who are going to be integral to that play, even in the planning process? For instance, will you have city transportation folks at these meetings or people who are doing affordable housing at these meetings. I mean, how can we literally bring all of the key partners and resources directly to this process from the beginning?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm also thinking about how do we support the developer to actually make this happen? Because I can imagine from their perspective, this is like, you know, how do we really work together?
Yeah.
For a win-win?
Yeah.
I'm asking.
Yeah,
You know?
I think it's important. So I've invited staff. We've got transportation staff and also staff from DPR who will be at the meeting upcoming here. And I also want to, once we've sort of shaped up the policies a little bit better, share those out with departments to have conversations internally about what sort of collaboration, what sort of options they think could be for the site. In terms of, you know, things that could be brought to bear by the city, I think I would be interested in hearing from the JCCPC what options are that, you know, this is compared to something like the former police headquarters. You know, we don't own the land. And right now, if sort of what is mostly being offered up from the city side is a yes vote on a rezoning, that's something, but, you know, potentially there could be more opportunities. So I think I'm curious to hear from folks.
Well,
on
and also
JCCPC.
in terms of Duke, I mean,
Yeah.
that's really key that they own the Macy's site, and making sure that they are actually here also, you know, Office of Community Affairs.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. I just want to highlight or note that both Commissioners Howerton and Burns have joined us this morning. Good morning. Councilmember Baker.
I've had a couple calls with folks from Walltown, and they wanted to let me know that they're really happy with the work that you've done so far, Carl. So I just want to give
Thank you.
kudos to you. I think you've done a fantastic job so far. This is real planning, and there's no blueprint for it, and so it's a messy process. So I hope you're enjoying it. There is obviously this tension here because the landowner wants to move, maybe wants to move. It's hard to know. And I think it's important for us to provide a message of sort of loud and clear to the landowner that we want to work with them and that this process can only succeed if we do all work together. And that means defining a clear vision, which you're doing with the community, defining a clear community vision, sitting down, all of us at a table and having a conversation about how to achieve that. Actually, 2 days ago, got a call from Folger Pratt, which is the company that has led the redevelopment of the Landmark Mall site in Alexandria, Virginia. And we had a long conversation about the viability of redevelopment of Northgate Mall. And they do think that it's possible to redevelop it in a way that is consistent with broadly with the community vision that is included in the policies that you all are working on. But it's going to involve help, I think, from the city and the county. And this question of what does that help look like? I don't know that we can define that yet, but I think the message right now is we want this to succeed, not only because it would be a success for Walltown, but a success for Walltown would also be a success for the entire city and the entire county. So I think that is the message that I want to convey is let's develop this vision. Let's make it clear what it is, set the policies, and then let's sit down at the table and figure out how we can be supportive and work with the landowner to make it happen. And if it has to be an iterative process, and the landowner comes back and says we can do this but not that, I think that's fair. We just want this to be a success for everyone and really make the best of what is possible. And that means balancing the vision with the financial realities, the market realities of what can actually be done. If the project needs to be phased, what does that look like? But how do we make this the best possible project that we can? And I also really appreciate that the mall is being looked at within the context of Walltown, because Walltown is right there, and Walltown has been a community that has led like incredible amounts of organizing and coalesced neighborhoods around Northgate Mall and laid out their own vision. So I think solidifying that vision in city and county policy is going to be very beneficial, as well as adding the power of planning and the power of zoning and capital investments and figuring out what we can all do together with this collaborative spirit to make it a success. So just wanted to say thank you for the work that you're doing on this, Carl. I know it's hard work. I know the conditions change every single day. But just let me know, let us know what we can do to be supportive of your work.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good morning, colleagues. Good morning, Carl. Thank you so much. I want to test the edges a little bit on this. Of the folk that attended the community meeting, did you capture how long they lived in Walltown?
Yeah, we did. That was part of the survey question. So we have that information. I can get the details of that. I do know, for one example, we had a table of 4 folks who were 5th generation Walltown residents. So I think there were a lot of people who'd been there for a long time, but also people who are relatively new to Walltown.
I'd be curious about that because I don't 56% white and 38% black. I don't really consider that an even split of attendees. And my concern is that if gentrification is one of the issues in a community discussion, there may very well be some of the folk who were the gentrifiers as part of the discussion.
Yeah.
And I know historically, if you look at the historical demographics of Walltown, and when I say historically, I'm not suggesting that we romanticize it, but we know what Walltown used to look like. It would not have been 56%, white, 38% black in Trinity Park. So, and then when I look at some of the comments that were captured from some of the attendees, one comment, no tall buildings. Another comment, we want tall buildings with multi-use. One, preserve the history. Another comment, we want it to look like Briar Creek. So, in having an authentic, community discussion, and I say that not to pour cold water on it, but that the community, even the community discussion, the community has already changed. So we're kind of like coming in trying to address gentrification in the community that's already being gentrified. And we are going to capture some of those voices in the conversation. So I want to unapologetically, say that we may have to do some further consideration. I don't want to say vetting, but of when we have a community discussion, what Walltown we are seeking to preserve and what Walltown we are seeking to listen to, because it's already in the process of changing. I appreciate your caution that what your advisory on what a small area plan is not, because I've heard folk bandy it about as if it's going to provide some type of legal guardrail or protection from some of the things we've seen. And while it's a useful document, a useful conversation, I think we need to be honest with folk and transparent about what it does not do. And I think you've done a good job in doing that. But I'm excited about this. I know Councilmember Baker has been a strong voice in pushing for small area planning, and I think it's a good thing. But I also want to caution that some of these areas, we are going to capture the voices and the sentiment of some of the things that folk are pushing against already, because the cake is already being baked. And I just want to put that out there as we move forward with these discussions. But thank you for the work. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anyone else? I'm going to keep us moving because we're right where we need to be. I have one question for you though, Carl. Thank you for the presentation. The only thing is, when we talk about transit opportunity, could you all come to us with, what does that mean?
Yeah, definitely.
Thank you. What does it mean? And I would like to see, 'cause transit opportunity here, zones, is not the same as what it is globally, right? And I hear a lot of criticism about how the US is doing it versus how it's been done in other parts of the world. So I would love to see pictures not just from the US. I would love to see what are the building code complications of some of these things in reference to ours versus global examples, because that's what I consistently hear. That's the chatter anyway. And so I would, since you're going to be coming back to us and we're going to be doing a deeper dive, that would be really, really helpful. And I appreciate that y'all are thinking not just about here, but that there's other, we all know that those, I mean, I think about the food line up Roxborough where Trosa is, and that site,
Yeah, it's a
I
big
can't
one.
wait till that
Yeah.
one gets redeveloped. So I think that it's going to help us not just think about Northgate, but what are we really imagining for lots of other spaces?
Yeah.
So yeah.
Okay, that's really helpful. I'll definitely bring that to the
Thank you.
October meeting.
And then one last thing, what time on Saturday?
So
Is
it's
the-
Saturday, the meeting starts at 10:30 a.m. at the Walltown Rec Center. It's an open house style because it's about a 14-page document. So I'm not going to bore people to death by reading the whole thing or anything. We'll have posters.
That's the 7th, right? Is that right?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
September the 7th.
Okay, well done. Thank you.
Okay, thanks so much.
Next up, we have Bo, I think. Yes. Am I on the wrong one?
Yeah, Page Miami.
Oh, sorry, y'all. I didn't have my reading glasses on. Page Miami. Kayla, thank you. Sorry about that. Not Bo. Good morning.
Good morning. Okay, thank you, Chris. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Kayla Seibel. I'm a senior planner at the Planning Department, and I'm here to give you a brief update on the Page Miami Design District. Previously, this project was named RTP South, and we changed the name to better reflect the area we're talking about and to not confuse it with RTP's planning work that they're doing. The last time that you all saw this work, I think, was in February, where we talked about the scope. And so since then, we've done a lot of work and have a rezoning proposal today to show you. So we welcome any feedback you have. So just as a reminder, this is the Page Miami area. I need to grab this so I can show you. I know aerials can be hard to look at on the PowerPoint, but we have I-40 coming in from sort of north to south here, Page Road coming in here and turning into Hobson Road. We have the railroad bisecting the area, NC 54, and kind of up here is the hub at RTP. That's kind of the area we're talking about. It's has a lot of mix of residential more on the west side, and then more office parks, your typical suburban office parks on the east side. So as a reminder, here's the existing zoning map up on the top. It's a mix of all different types of zoning districts, really, everything from light industrial, commercial, office and institutional, and some residential zoning districts. So when we were looking at this area and thinking about how we would implement the comprehensive plan, we looked at, again, the comprehensive plan place type map. It shows this area as a transit opportunity area, which we just talked about a little bit for Walltown. So we can talk more about kind of the zoning that we're thinking about translates well here for transit opportunity area. So the area is envisioned to densify with a more mix of uses and multimodal connectivity to support future transit in this area, either along the rail line or cross-regional transit through bus rapid transit along the existing roadways. And just as some background, most of this area was designated as a compact neighborhood in the previous comprehensive plan. So for a while, this area has been thought of as an area for regional connectivity and densifying. And so the purpose of this rezoning is to align that zoning map with our place type map through zoning implementation. Let's see. So we've shared some background information in your memo on the future transportation projects or studies in the area, as well as some demographics and a housing summary. This information helped provide some background and really helped inform our recommendations. I won't go into detail now, but if you have questions, we can certainly bring that up. In May, we held 2 neighborhood meetings to share information about the project to inform our proposal. We've attached an engagement summary to your memo and provided an overview of the primary concerns. And I'll summarize those primary concerns in a moment. Typically, folks talked about development intensity, where it was desired, where it was not desired, as well as what the rezoning's impact would be on existing development plans. So this is our zoning map change proposal, and the concerns we heard directly influenced this revised proposal and the text amendments that I will talk about. So initially, we proposed changing this entire Page Miami area to compact suburban design district. We thought that was a most appropriate zoning district that we have today for this area that implements that transit opportunity area vision. But based on the neighborhood meetings and survey responses and discussions with a few property owners, we revised our proposal. It's not as simple zoning straight from all those different zoning districts to CSD. Now we have a little bit more complexity to our zoning proposal. Here are the primary concerns we heard. So homeowners shared some uneasiness about residential areas being rezoned to compact suburban design district, thinking about how their neighborhood would change, especially in the townhomes that are most recently built, that the zoning change wouldn't really impact them in the more near term, but they're still uneasy with that zoning change at all. Neighbors near Finsbury Street, so that's this corner here, this brown. They were concerned primarily about this these two parcels here in the pink, the mixed use with a development plan site. There's a development plan on there that is aiming to add ground floor retail, so some commercial space within walking distance to those neighborhoods. And our rezoning would remove that development plan. So folks were concerned about that because they wanted to see what they had advocated for in that development plan. And then this is just still going through concerns, and I'll share how we are addressing those. And then the developer of one vacant site, kind of in this right here next to the railroad, it's like a hockey stick shape parcel here, very strange. They have a retail project in progress, and what they're working on would not meet the standards of our compact suburban design district, but would meet kind of the interest that we heard from neighbors about walking distance to retail and commercial. So to address those concerns, I will walk through the zoning map. So I guess starting with the easiest part of this proposal, on the east side, we have this blue, that's our compact suburban design district. We have a core and a support one sub-district. So the core is this darker blue, and that's where we might see the highest and most densest built development activity in the future. That's where the tallest buildings are allowed, the densest. That's where we expect more walkable, compact development. We primarily chose that area boundary for the core, mostly because of its proximity to the potential, if there is a potential rail stop, it would be, we think it would be right around here, kind of in the middle of the railroad here I'm circling. And then also the Go Triangle Regional Transit Station is being relocated to this pink OI parcel here, and then the hub at RTP is up here. So thought that made sense as far as proximity to future transit investments to keep that area at the core. And then the light blue is that support one. So that's a little less intense. It's still denser than what's allowed there now. Although it's not going to be that, let's see, what folks have built over time is about kind of the heights we see now would be allowed in the compact suburban design district. With the exception that there could be drive-throughs. Drive-throughs came up a lot, so banks and pharmacies would be allowed to have drive-throughs in this support one area. And then on the west side, just addressing these areas that are bolded in this black outline, we're proposing not to change. We're not proposing to change those at all. We heard from neighbors again that this development plan that really wanted to see on this mixed use parcel. So we thought that went perfectly in line with our transit opportunity area vision. So we agreed and are keeping that out of the rezoning. And then these RC and RUM areas are residential already and have been recently built, like in the last 10 years. So the zoning already kind of matches what's been built there, and it's not going to change really in the near future. So we heard good feedback that that's what folks wanted to see. And in our recent meetings, they liked that we kept those areas out. And this area is also known as the Davis Park area. If I've heard a little bit about that. So townhomes in this orange side, and then in this brown, kind of going through the middle, are recently built apartments. So we were really cleaning up the zoning here. Right now it's zoned office and institutional with the development plan. What's built out there is not office and institutional, but it is obviously consistent with the development plan. So we were cleaning that up and designating these parcels as residential. And then this blue is that compact suburban design support one to try to still bring some more mixed use to the area. And then finally, this hockey stick parcel with that retail project, we thought that CN, the commercial neighborhood zoning district, was appropriate for what they were trying to do and still felt in line with what residents wanted to see there and the kind of neighborhood proximity to a commercial area. So with that, with trying to accommodate what we heard from residents and property owners in this area, we have some recommended changes to our place type map. It's not that much different. It's still a transit opportunity area for the most of the case area. And then this dark purple are the changes that are, it's mixed use mixed use neighborhood, MUN. So it's just, I guess, slightly a step down, really reflects what's been built there recently and is going to stay there for a while. But the big exception here, again, the hockey stick parcel. Right here, we're recommending neighborhood services as an appropriate place type. When we were looking to designate neighborhood services on our comprehensive plan in the place type map, we tried to find places where that would fit, and we didn't capture them all. So when we were looking at this area again, kind of hyper focusing on it, we found that opportunity to designate that as a neighborhood services on the place type map. So those are some recommended proposed place type map changes. Don't try to read this slide. I know it's a lot, but we just wanted to make you aware of 2 small text changes that we're recommending with this. So again, as we are looking at this area and recommending zoning changes, we also found opportunities to clean up some of our ordinance language to clarify. First, just a sign area calculation. We needed to point to the right place in the UDO so folks know how to calculate their sign area. And then for the one on the bottom, the transitional use area, major special use permit, that was created as part of the Patterson Place Compact Suburban Design District to protect those environmentally sensitive areas on the edge. And so we wanted to clarify that that is a mechanism really for Patterson Place. The same environmental conditions don't exist in the Page Miami area. So that would, we just wanted to clarify that in the code. We held some neighborhood meetings last month. We had an in-person and a Zoom meeting, and anecdotally, I heard good feedback from residents that they liked the revised proposal and that we listened and heard their feedback. So we're hoping that that's still the right direction that we're going in. And there's our schedule. We're in September. We've submitted to our growth management staff the revised rezoning proposal that I just shared with you today. And we're preparing for the October 8th Planning Commission meeting. Yeah, and so hopefully we'll be coming to council in December, and then we'll coming to the county commissioners for that text change later. Okay, with that, I can answer any questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Kayla. Go ahead, Director Young.
Kayla, I think it might be helpful to talk very briefly about that convenience store issue that's come up. If you want to kind of fill everyone in, it might be good to get some feedback from this group about
Sure.
that issue.
Absolutely. Let me open. I don't know if this is the best map, but I'll try. Okay, so I think this is definitely going to be a conversation that comes up as Durham is growing and transitioning to these more transit nodes that are in our comprehensive plan. So these areas are not envisioned to have gas stations, car dealerships, car washes, things that are very auto oriented. But those places exist today. And especially in this area, there are 3 gas stations. there's this, there's this Sheets over here. And then at this corner where I have the core designated of our compact suburban design district, there's a Family Fare convenience store and gas sales. And then across the street, I can't remember which type of gas station it is, but it's another gas station right there. So we've only heard from one gas station owner, it's the Family Fare convenience store, that if they're rezoned to compact suburban design, they'll be non-conforming. It will be a use that is not allowed to continue more of. So they can stay, but if they're looking to make major improvements, or if their property is destroyed by 51%, more than 51%, then they cannot rebuild that gas station use there. So they've asked us to exclude them from the rezoning, and we as staff we're going to flag that as, hey, we have this request. It is a kind of a difficult site. Yes, it is a gas station. It's also kind of in the middle of this district and an area where we see it's developing into the core area. So we're going to flag that for Planning Commission. But yeah, any feedback y'all have on what to do with that? Does Sarah or Scott, do y'all have any additions to my explanation? Okay. Cool. Yeah. Oh, the aerial. I don't think I included the aerial.
Commissioner Jacobs, your mic is not on. Sorry.
I'm sorry. Yeah, I think in the future, having this type of map, a topo map is really helpful. And also a map that identifies a lot of the key
Mhm.
things that you mentioned, like where the multimodal hub is going to be. And
Okay.
like, I think, this is all new, right? Implementing the comp plan. We're just starting to do this. So I think, we're all just learning, but I think, so can you show us with the pointer where the gas station
Yeah,
is?
absolutely.
Or you said it's a Sheets, or what is it?
Family
A Family Fare. Okay, where is it?
right here.
Okay, right
So-
here. And that's right across from
Yeah, so that'll be the regional transit station.
Branch, and that
Somewhere.
the whole intent is that this be very high density. I mean, for me, it's kind of a no-brainer that no. Because that's what we want the whole area to redevelop to. So that's like my
Yeah.
off the cuff response.
Commissioner Howerton, go ahead.
Are the other two gas stations? Because
Yeah, so here's the first one I mentioned, the Family Fare right across the street is the other one. And then the Sheets is all the way over here on 54. Not 54, Davis. So 2 here and then over here.
that's 1, 2, 3, 4. Wow, there'll be plenty of gas stations. You won't run out of gas.
And
Well, I mean, the point is that this is a transit opportunity area. That's the whole point.
There's still a lot of gas stations.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm just wondering what the community, will it be business? How is it zoned?
they have different zoning. So the gas station here is the one that where the property owner spoke up is CN, commercial neighborhood.
So I guess my question it relates to the community and how it will be zoned with that many gas stations close by.
So gas stations wouldn't be, like new gas stations wouldn't be allowed in the zoning that we're proposing. And from what I've heard from residents from this area on the west side, when that Sheets was built, I heard folks saying that was not what they expected to come out of that Davis Park area developing, that it was not a walkable, wasn't kind of a desired use. So but I have not heard specific concerns about the other two gas stations.
Yeah, it's not a walkable community. You know, I'm over that way quite a bit, and it's not a walkable area. And if we are considering putting residential in the area, I think that would be some concern.
Sure, the rezoning is to help transition this area to being more mixed use and walkable. So it's not there yet. You see pockets of more mixed use and walkability out here. But this it would be a slow transition over time. And our zoning district has standards in it to make it more walkable.
Yeah. Thank you.
Go ahead, Councilmember Baker.
Thank you for your presentation. There are entire books and conferences dedicated to what retrofitting suburbia looks like. So that is what this is the process of taking what under a conventional suburban style lens or framework, we would just look at this and say, oh, that's fully built out. We're kind of done. This is fully built out. You can't do anything else. But when you actually look at it, I'm almost curious for everything on the east side here, what percentage of that is just surface parking lots? I mean, it's got to be at least 40–50% that is just surface parking lots. So if we take a different lens, which is more trans-oriented lens, you know, suddenly it's not fully built out and there's so much more that can be done. And as you mentioned, over time, you know, some of these buildings will age. Some of them are probably newer. They're not going to redevelop in a very, very long time, but eventually they might reach that point where it's time to redevelop them. And then, you know, you have to come into conformance with this brand new, not just vision, but set of regulations for this area. I'm a little bit curious to know if there are any parcels specifically in this area where redevelopment is anticipated imminently, if that's something that you're aware of, and if there are conversations around what those first redevelopment projects might end up looking like. I know it's still early. I'd also be interested, because these are giant blocks, what redevelopment of these areas would look like to enhance the street connectivity and the street network and the block network. You know, because it might look silly if a very large parcel gets redeveloped and you know, we say, well, you're gonna have to dedicate, you know, this additional street that doesn't connect yet, and maybe in 10 years the property next to you will dedicate a street and it'll connect. You know, that's a very awkward thing. So if there's been thinking around what the enhancement of the street network would look like. So those are my questions and comments. I think I share the same sentiment as Commissioner Jacobs around the gas station. They will remain there for a very long time. And it would be under extraordinary circumstances that they would, you know, burn down, need to redevelop, or want to grow in size. So I don't anticipate the rezoning changing that anytime soon.
Yeah, Councilmember Baker, to your first question, we don't know of any imminent plans to redevelop any of the areas. There are still, as you can see, there's still several vacant sites on the kind of in the Davis Park area west of the railroad tracks, which are already entitled or will probably soon be entitled for fairly consistent development to the vision. We do know we've had several new property owners in kind of particularly the area, kind of the northern, yeah, near the Miami and 40 area, that's where some of the offices that have been hardest hit are, and some new property owners have come in and they have indicated some intent to try to find ways to redevelop or fill in the parking lots. I'll let Kayla answer your second question.
Yeah, so that's definitely a challenge as far as street connectivity for this area and how all these parcels are going to fit together. Don't think I have a perfect answer. I will say that for the Patterson Place Compact Suburban Design District, we laid out a transportation network map. I think that in the code, which I think we found has been difficult to implement, because of the, alignment, having to change that within the code. So we opted to not do that here right now, as far as like putting together, just trying to draw lines on a map to figure out transit connectivity. But yeah, I don't know specifically how the CSD works together, but Sarah can answer.
Yeah, we do have block standards that apply along with other streetscape standards and street typologies in the compact suburban design district. It's one of the benefits of going to that district. The block standards are tripped when there is a subdivision of any kind with a development. So under law, we can't force someone to subdivide and create streets, but the instant they do, this part of the ordinance kicks in and requires, the type of more urban, walkable block standards that you would expect.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. And then we're a little behind, so.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so Caleb, when you
Yeah.
get a chance, if we could get a copy of this map,
Yes.
that would be great. I spent a lot of time in this area because that's where, Central Pines is and our MPO, and there's already a lot happening. I mean, there's already a there's a lot of work here already. There's a lot of people living here, people eating here. I mean, it's actually in a surprisingly vibrant area already. And I'm really excited about this. And I really appreciate the work that you and the staff have been leading on this. I went to the first meeting I attended, second one I signed up for, but I wasn't able to make. And I appreciate the way that this process has been, which is, with the comp plan, we're really looking at a very high level. And it means that we are going to have to do this kind of tweaking. This is what it's going to look like. Like you said, it's messy because you can't get down to that detail, and getting the input from residents. I think a lot of their concerns are very fair and reasonable, and it's going to be a give and take. And I think what everyone has come up with is good, and it's realistic. So I appreciate all of you who are, Carl and everyone who are taking this first step. And this is really also, I appreciate staff responding, because this was something that I had requested because of the multimodal hub. So the ability of us to respond to things that are happening on the ground, I think, is really important. So thank you.
Thank you. Just really quickly, what I would love to see, so I get what's happening on the east side with the different districts. It would be helpful to have an visual understanding of what are the changes there? Like if I'm looking at building type, or I'm looking at what's allowed and what's not allowed. Because right now I'm not a planner. So you're telling me this and I'm like, okay, well, what does that mean to me as just a layperson? And what does that mean for most people who are going to be looking at these kinds of maps? Because I hear folks having concerns, but I also want to see, okay, but what is the missed opportunity potentially, right? If we do it this way, which I understand is staff being really conscientious and responding to community members. But I think as decision makers, we still need to understand what are the opportunities that are maybe we're gaining or losing by going this route. Thank you. That's all. Yes, go ahead.
Question.
Go ahead, Commissioner Hamilton.
I'd like to know, as far as transit, what's the transit plan in the area as you develop out there? Because that's it's a very tight transportation area out there. And anytime between 7:30 and 9 o'clock, you're in trouble. And from between 4 and 6, you're in trouble. It's kind of like I-40.
Yeah.
So I'm just wondering, are there any plans for transit?
Yeah, there's a number of studies and plans to get this area kind of more transit access. But I can I know in the interest of time, I can follow up with with these links. But yeah, we're looking at the
Yeah,
mobility hub.
I'm familiar with the mobility hub. I serve on that board, so I
Okay.
know about that.
Sure.
I'm talking from the gas stations, from the area
Mhm,
back through there on Page Road.
mhm.
Are there any plans to change those routes?
I can look,
And you may not have that right now,
Yeah.
but that just,
I can look into it. I don't want to give the wrong answer. But there does need to be more expanded transit access on those roads.
all right, thank you.
Yeah. Mhm.
Thank you. And then one last thing, and this is around transit. Have you all had the most recent conversation? And I don't know how it wraps around, but the potential application of bus rapid transit to the airport down 70.
Mhm.
Okay, so could folks just reach out to transportation and
Yes.
have that recent, and I can't, I'm having a hard time figuring out if it impacts it or not, but I'd rather y'all talk than not.
Yep.
Okay,
We'll
thank
do
you.
that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next up, we do have, now I'm back on track. Oh, no. I'm like, y'all are just gonna mess with me all morning. Good morning. Thank you.
Good morning. I am Lisa Miller with the Planning Department. I am not Bo, but he is also here to help answer questions that you all may have when we get to that point.
Is there a link?
Okay, good morning. I am here this morning just to provide an update on the new UDO project. We can go to the next slide. Let me see. There we go. So we are not asking you all for any formal action this morning, but we are focusing this project update on engagement, both activities that have been happening and that is now planned over the next couple of months. I'm going to provide kind of a high-level overview on all of that, but I'm happy to answer any more detailed questions that you all may have after the presentation. But we are just looking for any feedback that you all may have as we share this. So first, just wanted to provide kind of big picture reminder maybe, or just kind of helping make sure folks understand the structure of how this project is working. So planning staff is providing project management and taking on kind of broad engagement throughout the city and county for this project. Code Studio, in combination with a number of other partners, is handling the technical work as a consultant. And TG Allen and Associates, Dr. Tawana Allen, who y'all have heard from in the past, is working on our kind of focused engagement in communities that have been historically marginalized. So we are all working together, and staff is kind of managing and pulling that information together. So this, as part of our project management, we have decided it could be helpful to provide regular updates to you all, kind of pulling from the work of the 3 different groups, so that you all have regular information, and we'll be sharing that information regularly out with the community as well. So we will still have our consultants attend from time to time, but just will be leading kind of ongoing updates as well. So just wanted to share a few things about the ongoing and engagement work that has been happening to date. Tawana Allen has been working with us as a consultant, specifically on that focused engagement effort, and will be leading the Engagement Ambassadors program. A lot of her work, while the technical consultant has been creating content for us to engage on, has been focused on just kind of sharing information about what the project is, that it's happening, helping provide education. She's been doing that in a number of different kind of tabling, community event sorts of settings, as well as attending meetings, and, you know, of neighborhood groups and organizations in order to help people have a better understanding of what the Unified Development Ordinance is and what the upcoming opportunities would be. And those have been opportunities as well to share information about the Engagement Ambassadors program that would be coming and to recruit folks to participate in that. She's also been working through what this iteration of the Engagement Ambassadors work will look like, putting together kind of that program development and training development for those folks. In addition, staff has been working on putting together strategies for communications about the project and engagement on the project, kind of taking a look at the proposed schedule timeline that we had received from the technical consultant and aligning where there's opportunities for us to have multiple phases of engagement as we receive content from them on draft regulations. So a little bit more about the Engagement Ambassadors program. So the program kind of schedule, roles, stipends, and timeline has been developed by Tawana. Recruitment initially was opened in June and ran through the middle of July. Hasn't actually been a hard cutoff. We've been continuing to recruit folks. And in particular, you'll see in a moment, there's a couple of identity groups that we're trying to do more recruitment with because they were underrepresented in the recruitment that we had initially done. At this time, the initial training for the Engagement Ambassadors has been completed, just kind of sharing information with folks about the roles and responsibilities, stipends, logistics, just kind of giving people a chance to better understand the program and to ask questions. And then we have this Saturday, the second training is scheduled. We'll be focused specifically just on sharing information about what the Unified Development Ordinance is. Our staff will be there helping talk through and answer questions on that. A third training is scheduled later this month that will be focused on kind of bringing those two things together. How are we actually going to be engaging people on the proposed regulations? So just a couple quick snapshots of the initial folks who were recruited. We asked two questions on the interest form. One was, which of these identities do you personally hold? And the second question is, which of these identities, which are communities that you are connected to? So trying to understand both who we're actually talking to or potentially participating in the program and kind of who their networks of residents are. So you'll see at the bottom there, the least representation in that initial recruitment was folks with limited English proficiency, immigrants and refugees, and seniors. So a number of the events and ongoing recruitment efforts that Tawana has been making over the last 2 months have been focused specifically on those identities. In addition, here's just kind of a geographic snapshot of those initial folks recruited. Just a note, we are planning, this engagement is going to be multiple phases over much of the next year. So we know that it's maybe not always going to be possible for an engagement ambassador to participate in every phase. So we will be probably doing additional recruitment along the way in order to make sure that we have a good number of folks participating in that program. And we're going to continue to summarize, looking both at the kind of geographic distribution of the people involved, as well as the demographic identities of the active participants in that program, so that as we need to adjust in order to have that be more representative, then we will have the ability to do that. So just a quick kind of snapshot for each phase of engagement. These are all things that will be happening. So one of the things that we'll be doing is staff-led in-person engagement events. We're partnering with our county libraries and have tentative dates scheduled for between October 1st and November 19th for this first phase of engagement at East, South, North, and Main libraries. We also will be having at least one virtual engagement session for each phase of engagement. The work that Tawana is doing with engagement ambassadors will have at least 30 focus group discussions. Will potentially be increasing that as we're able to with the folks that are recruited. One thing that we're going to try doing is kind of additional partnering with the library is scheduling just kind of drop-in office hours with planning staff. So we're going to have regular sessions at the main library that are, a block of 2 to 3 hours where we're letting people know staff is there. You can come talk to us if you have questions, if you want to give feedback. We have the ability to work remotely, so if nobody shows up, then we can still carry on with our work. And then we're additionally, for each one of the non-main library engagements that we schedule, we'll be having within kind of the week after that engagement. So if we have an engagement at the North Durham Library on a Tuesday, then sometime within that next week, schedule open office hours time there for anybody who maybe has additional questions that they didn't have a chance to talk about at the engagement, or if they missed it, to have a chance kind of in those different geographies in the community. In addition, Bo has pulled together, asked a number of departments for liaisons kind of to be involved in reviewing and getting information and updates on the project and providing input. That group was convened initially in the last week or two, and information is being shared regularly with them as well. So all of that is what we'll be doing for each phase of engagement. This timeframe kind of lays out what those 4 phases of engagement are that we have planned. This initial one that I mentioned, sessions between October 1st and November 19th, is the fall 2024 phase 1. So essentially each one of these kind of phases is focused on when we have new content from the technical consultant. So this initial content is a zoning map and new districts. So entire new set of zoning districts and dimensional standards to go along with those, including, so they're creating these 2-page spreads that have kind of graphic and diagram information at the top and charts and dimensional standards at the bottom for each one of the districts and tied to a zoning map. One of the things that we have kind of an opportunity to do here, because we're doing multiple phases of engagement, is we're starting with kind of the zoning map and districts with this first phase, but we are going to be able to continue to get input on both of those things through the next several engagements. So because we're starting with the most complex piece, people will be able to engage and give input on the zoning map and districts on every phase of engagement that follows. So it's an additive rather than each phase being kind of a standalone. So the second phase, which we anticipate end of the year, beginning of next year, is kind of development standards. So parking, buffering, open space, things like that that go along with the zoning districts. The third phase will be subdivision standards, infrastructure standards, and some of the administrative stuff will be happening, will be drafted along then as well. And then in the summer, we anticipate having the entire draft pulled together in a single document to kind of be able to see how everything relates together in its revised forms. And then it would go through and begin the adoption process after that final engagement on the full draft code. So for each one of these phases, all of these things will be happening. We do plan to kind of assess after each phase of engagement, understand how are things working, what do we need to shift in order to do better. But this is our plan kind of laid out over the year for now. So that is the end of my presentation, but like I said, I'm happy to answer questions and any more detail on the proposed engagement approach.
Thank you, Lisa. Does anyone have any questions, comments? Oh, thank you. Oh, go ahead, Councilmember Baker.
Thank you for that. One real quick question. There have been a lot of conversation about the street cross sections and sort of pulling those out of Public Works and tying them directly to the new UDO. Is that a conversation that's happening, and would that be sort of module number 3?
I'm gonna let Bo handle that, so you guys get to see him.
Finally, all right. Bud Brinsky Planning. Great question. So yeah, that'll be the third module. We have had some preliminary conversations. No commitments, no, just sort of, we're beginning the conversation about who would control them, what they look like. And that's, I will say, probably the biggest reasoning for the liaison. We recognize that's probably an opportunity and a potentially big shift.
And then I have a question really quickly. Are y'all speaking with NIO at the county around immigrant and refugee?
Yes, I think in a previous presentation to you all, one of y'all mentioned that, and Tawana did connect with them.
Okay, perfect. Because he should be able to get us even just like focus groups with certain pockets of refugee community members. And we have, if you'll end up needing support, I mean, we've run some things in Swahili and Arabic, so we
Okay.
can get, he has those networks too, but
Yeah.
please don't let language access issues be a limiting factor, especially on resources.
Sounds good.
Thank
Thank you. Thanks, y'all.
Really quick follow-up, I'm sorry, my bad. The meeting that you had in Southeast Durham, y'all had one back in May with the Southeast Durham Community Council, am I making it up?
Oh,
Sorry.
that Tawana went to, yes.
Yes, like what, I'm not familiar with that group. I'm not that there, but I'm just curious.
Yeah, so it's just a group of neighborhoods, like southeast in town, that's kind of near the Campus Hills area.
Okay, okay, just was curious.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of that collection of neighborhoods
And they
previously
had a good
either.
turnout?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, I think she maybe went to multiple of their
right. 'Cause-
conversations.
And y'all are killing it, it's just that one was the only one. Okay, thank you, ma'am. It was random.
Thank you.
Thanks.
And then the last item we have is your item. Sarah?
All right, so this is a bit of a follow-up item from our last meeting where we talked about a change to the way that the county provides feedback on annexations. I took the synopsis of what we talked about at the last JCCPC meeting in June to the county work session yesterday and had an opportunity to talk with county commissioners about it. And what there was consensus for was basically three things. One is continuing to prepare the summary reports to JCCPC about new cases that have come in, with an extra twist that we would highlight cases that are inconsistent with the place type map and allow an opportunity for this body to, have any comments they want to in that brief agenda item about those cases. So that was one thing. The second thing was there was agreement for staff to no longer send emails to the county commissioners seeking their individual feedback before it goes to council. And then the third thing, which I think is probably the most significant addition, which we talked about last time, is taking any annexations that are outside the urban growth boundary to the county commissioners at a work session, allowing staff would do a very brief presentation. The applicant would be asked to be there and to be able to talk about their proposal. And the county commissioners would provide, we would work with the county clerk to receive their written feedback that would then be compiled and included in the city council agenda item, similar to how we do handle planning commission written comments. We would also provide a link in that agenda, in those comments, to the recording and the timestamp in case any council member really wanted to go back and kind of watch that part of the discussion. So that is, and I defer obviously to the commissioners that are here that were there yesterday, but that was the synopsis of the conversation yesterday. And I just wanted to, since this is the body that really kind of guides and directs the work of the planning department, it needed to kind of land back here for the final this is how we're moving forward.
I got one. Yesterday, I was really clear with my comments about how I felt about it. I will say, I think that this is a happy medium, and I'm okay with that. I will repeat some of what I said yesterday. I often notice, whether it's on city council, county commission, people say one thing in here, then say another thing in their chambers, and then come in. I don't want anything that I said to be misconstrued, like other people in this room. So I did say yesterday, I think more information is always good. I came into, there are many facets of government. I've worked at the state, federal, and local level. This was one of the few where I came in at a deficit. I said that yesterday, and I don't want other people to come in here at the same deficit that I had. I mentioned yesterday that Stephen Valentine is the only person coming on county commission that actually has any planning experience, because outside of being on the planning commission, and while that is not an indictment of the other two individuals, I mean, I don't know what they're good at. I haven't seen it, but I know that this is not necessarily a space where they're good at, and more information is always better. I do recognize, much like my colleague said yesterday, that when we do get this list, it is really far off. Does that make sense? Like, this is just when somebody has submitted something, it might be 2 years beforehand. And so I don't mind that sometimes because it lets me think long range. But it also, if that in any way would handicap my colleagues because they're thinking that this is going to come out tomorrow, I am happy that some things are going to continue to come to us and we will put comments out there. I know that it seems somewhat like, I don't want to say busy work for staff, because now that puts, when we requested that y'all start to send this to us, you all sent it to us, and there were people that sat around this table that didn't ever read any of it. And we know that they didn't read any of it. I don't want people in the county to feel like, and I know that some of them are here, so let me look at them. Oh, hey, Michelle, how you doing? Well, now she do have some experience, first time for everything. I want to make it very clear to the folks in the county that we are not cutting them off from having a more active voice. I think that this happy medium that my other colleague came up with is a more succinct way, as opposed to coming as 3 ways. The way that it would come now would push us to actually write things up and submit them back in, as opposed to an email that's a list. Some of our colleagues don't see it. It's one bullet item that's on here. So it is a happy medium for me. I don't feel like this would be an opportunity to take voices away, but to really focus in for the new county commissioners to look at it. I said this yesterday, I meant it. I'm somewhat disturbed at the fact that things will go to the planning commission and be voted down 12-0, and then respectfully go to the city council and then be voted straight up. And I recognize that some people in this room feel like, well, these are volunteers, and what they say, they're not necessarily experts. Respectfully, there are a couple of people on the planning commission that are experts if you read their resumes. And so I think even if they were not, they still live here, still pay taxes here, and they still care about what happens here. So I do think more information is better. I do hope the county, our county residents understand that we're not trying to take anything from them, but really trying to make this process more succinct. I also said, I think Bo was there yesterday, Sarah, you were there yesterday. I have deep respect for your work and the fact that you all come to us with these recommendations. It's not y'all that I don't trust. And I've made that very clear. Even when we continue to see these photos over and over and over and over and over again about encroachment, I've never seen so many deer in my neighborhood in my life. And I got a tiny yard. I know y'all know what my yard looks like because y'all like take pictures of it and put it on the internet. So I've never seen so many bunny rabbits in my yard. I've never seen, roll your eyes if you want. I'm proud that I have a yard. Everybody in Durham ain't got one, and I like to keep mine. I've never got so many blasting notices. So when I sit here and I think about some of the people in this room who are like, this issue doesn't affect them because they don't live in the county, city residents are our residents too. And to sit here and kind of just think, all of the people in the county are our residents, to me is potentially problematic. Everybody is our resident, and I care about each one of them. Even if I don't have a voting, I'm not in a position of power to vote in their best interest on some things. So I am okay with this happy medium that we came up with on yesterday, but I did not want to say one thing in one meeting and not say it in another meeting, because that's cowardice. And I'll stop
Thank you,
there.
Commissioner Burns.
I wasn't. It's okay. You and Netta like to do that to Black people. Go ahead, girl.
Oh my God. Okay. Does anyone else have any comments? Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I appreciate my colleagues' comments. The cool things about recorded meetings are that they're recorded and you can go back and watch them. That's the beauty of archiving things. The Planning Commission is an advisory board, kind of like the Joint Chiefs of Staff. They give the president or the decision maker their opinion, then the decision maker makes a decision. The Joint Chiefs don't go out and hold a press conference about why didn't you take my position. That's what an advisory board does. And the Durham City Council has a long record of actually voting the way the Planning Commission suggests many times, and sometimes we part company. That's the nature of an advisory board. I do have a question about, and also it's also recorded that indeed there are experts on the Planning Commission, or you can become an expert through years of engagement and work. I don't know if anybody who got elected to the city council would have been considered an expert in municipal government the minute they were elected. I'd like to take that moniker, but I don't know if folk would agree with that. Over the years, perhaps we can become. So the comments are out there and they're clear if anybody wants to listen to without filter. I will say with respect to this, I have a question about this process and legality. So the zoning function of the city council is statutorily prescribed and outlined. The Planning Commission is statutorily, their role is statutorily prescribed. The county commissioners are an adjudicating legal body that has roles prescribed statutorily. So and of course, they're also residents and citizens. They're free to come to meetings and public hearings. Any county resident is free to come to a city council meeting and testify as they do. So those processes are in place. So I'm just wondering if we receive an addendum or a package from an actual legal body as part of our presentation in our zoning consideration, it's for informational purposes. I'm just wondering what that looks like. Because I don't want to create the impression we're creating super legal structures or that we're codifying a part of the zoning process that actually is not part of the process. I'm pleased to hear from anyone, whether it's email, phone call, but are we saying that there would now be, in addition to our Planning Commission comments, our report from the staff, and a packet from county commissioners with their comments, and what does that look like in terms of the legal nexus of the zoning world that is prescribed statutorily?
A. Ramones with the city attorney's office. It would be purely information. It would be taken in the same as citizen comments, because the county commissioners would not have jurisdiction over any matters that are in the zoning realm within the city. That would solely fall within city council. So it would be information similar to citizen comments.
So, and I heard an allusion to the Planning Commission actually takes a vote, and the results of their votes are reported to us. Would this document from the county be just commentary, or are they going to take a vote, or we recommend you guys do approve it, we recommend you don't approve it? What would that document look like?
Curtis Massey, County Attorney's Office. As discussed yesterday, it was basically a collection of comments.
Okay.
Could I jump in for 2 seconds? And
You would spend
it's a
15
question.
minutes if you
It was the answer.
So
It was the answer, because we can tell you what we said.
My mic, turn your mic off right now. Thank you. We're not going to interrupt one another. It's the Mayor Pro Tem's turn. Commissioner Brollins, I'll call on you next. Thank you.
thank you. And I do want to hear your response. I just
Thank you,
want
because you
no,
asked the
I
question
just-
of us.
So just to be clear, just to put a fine point on it, then I'll yield. So collection of comments, no tallying or polling the House. The majority of the comments went this way, just the comments.
That was what was discussed.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
And I'll yield. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Commissioner Burns.
Really quickly. So to answer, I'm gonna give you a perfect example. So Mayor Pro Tem, do you remember there was a issue one time and I'm gonna just do this anecdotally. Let's just say, for instance, when I came to your office one time to talk to you about the Boys and Girls Club, do you remember that? Right, it was an issue that hadn't made it to you, but I came to you about it. Same way somebody might come to you about public health. Public health is not germane to the city, correct? But oftentimes people will come to you because you're an elected official and they know that you can get to me, even because they might not know me, but they're in community with you. So by this same token, there are individuals in the county that are in community with Commissioner Howerton. They're in community with Commissioner Jacobs, and they will often come to us with their concerns. And so I don't think it's a problem for us to then take the concerns of those constituents and our own expertise at this point and put them down and say, hey, I also think while we might not necessarily be in a position to say, we might put our concerns in there. I could actually see myself in my written comment saying, hey, I actually do agree with the planning commission that this goes this way. Or I might say, I don't agree with the planning commission. Like I'm at my leeway to do that for these next 70 some days, right? So whether or not you take it into account, I think as elected officials, we come to each other all the time with concerns from other citizens that might not necessarily make it to your plate. And this is just our opportunity to say, this is how this is affecting people who have come to us. This is also how we see this is affecting the environmental landscape around us. And we would like you to take our comments into account as you aggregate what you're getting from your lawyers, what you're getting from your planning commission, and what you're getting from your own expertise. Because again, we're residents also. So it's not like we want to bully you all in here. You've come to me plenty of times and been like, Commissioner Burns, such and such came to me about this housing issue. It isn't one of yours, but it's one of ours. And so that's all this is our opportunity to say, bro, this is what is coming to us. That's it. And I think that that's fair. And I honestly think, now, you know, I don't trust everybody. I feel like I'm looking at you and I'm like, take that into your calculus as you make this decision along with everything else. The same way you were able to look at the survey that Carl gave today, what did you do? You looked into the data and said it was 56-38. And even you knew traditionally that this was not the demographic breakdown of Walltown. We're giving you an additional piece of insight. And I don't see why, not you, but some people have a problem with that, if that's fair to say. And I hope that when we send these comments, you all can be open to them. It's no different than public housing, water, anything else.
Thank you. I just have one clarifying question. It was the third point. That's just for cases outside of the urban growth boundary.
That is correct.
I will just say, and we're almost at time. I think that what Commissioner Burns just shared makes perfect sense. The problem is for me is that we are formalized. So however we speak to one another informally to persuade each other and I'm going to recommend that we move this forward. I'm not opposed to it because it seems that there's consensus. I'm not hearing anything from either one of my council colleagues. I think the difference is this is formalizing a thing in a way that is informal. Whatever my opinion or whatever resident has a question or a comment around education or public health or Department of Social Services, I can reach out to my school board colleague. I can inform that resident that I don't have purview over their issue and here's how to reach out to that person. That is all informal. This is formalizing a thing. Again, I'm not opposed to it. It's fine. But I think there is a difference between formalizing something and having an informal communication amongst colleagues. So I do want to note that. And then finally, I would like to have some clarification on when folks are coming to work session, what are going to be the parameters on commissioners on making sure that we are not getting into a public hearing. So so I would like clarification on, I would assume public comment is not going to be allowed, and that needs to be clarified and communicated. But again, it's not my board. So I see Commissioner Jacobs' hand up. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, just to clarify a few things. Number one, at our work sessions, people cannot pull agenda items and, make specific comments about agenda items. But we do have a 30-minute public comment period before every work session. That's required by state statute. So people during that 30-minute period can comment on anything that they want. But I actually have a different perspective than Commissioner Burns about the purpose of this. For me personally, this is about implementing the comprehensive land use plan. And I think it's very important that I mean, I am personally committed to trying to uphold the comprehensive land use plan, which is an expression from the community over many years of the vision for the future. And so for me, this is presents an opportunity when things are coming forward that are outside of the urban growth boundary, that are not consistent, for us to be able to because only certain commissioners are on Joint City County Planning Committee. It gives the opportunity for all of us to be informed and then just provide feedback, and that's it. But I just think it's important. And that's it. But it is not, to your point, it's not a vote. It's not anything like that.
Thank you, Commissioner Jacobs. Councilmember Baker.
I worked on the Wake County Comprehensive Plan, which seems very complicated because you have 12 municipalities, which means you have 13 different jurisdictions, 13 different planning departments, and 13 different planning commissions. And we have one, and it's joint, and it's very complicated here. Things are complicated. Just a summary of what we're doing here. We no longer here at this body get the list of annexations, right? We would still get it at JCCPC. Okay. County commissioners would no longer get that email. Okay, that's one thing. And then the annexation requests outside of the UGB would be elevated in visibility by being presented at the work session. So those are the changes we're talking about here. And then also there's planning commission, which doesn't get annexation cases, but by default, they kind of get, they do now. Oh, okay. Is this more or less burdensome for the planning department, or about the same? These changes together.
I don't expect that this will be terribly burdensome. I'm expecting relatively few cases outside the UGB because staff has done a really good job when we meet with applicants of saying like, the UGB is the UGB, right? And so I don't expect that there will be a ton of these cases. So every once in a blue moon, having a case that we have to prepare an extra agenda item and get it on the calendar, that is very manageable. That is not a burden.
Okay, and county commissioners are more or less on the same page about.
Yeah, consensus.
Makes sense to me. All right, that's all.
Thank you. And Commissioner Howerton did share before she left that she felt that what Director Young shared and where she and her colleagues were all aligned. Mayor Pro Tem, go
Madam
ahead.
Chair, thank you, ma'am. Just one final quick point. I'm I have no problem hearing from county commissioners. I think more conversation is better. I hope if we start sending recommendations about school policy, y'all will be welcoming to us as well. And finally, you know, the urban growth boundary has not stopped county residents from still appealing to us, even on cases inside the urban growth boundary. And some of the same arguments that we hear outside the urban growth boundary have been just as vociferous inside here, even in infill development. So I welcome this, but you know, it's not like folk have said to us, oh, do whatever you want inside the urban growth boundary because it doesn't affect us. We're here for outside. So I welcome this, but you know, my experience has been dealt with a lot of cases that the urban growth boundary has not in any way muted conversation or stemmed critique with cases that are even inside the urban growth boundary. Like it's not a hard line that prevents any, spillover or impact to our county residents. So, good luck. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to flag that at our next meeting, Commissioner Howerton has already shared she will not be here. So I just want to make sure that we do have quorum at next one because we weren't able to meet in August like we were supposed to. So if you know you're going to miss, please let me or Director Young know so that we can ensure we have quorum. Thank you. We are adjourned right at 11:10. And the next meeting, I'm sorry, really quickly, is October 2nd.